Good morning. Yeah. I want to thank you for joining us today, especially those of you who trekked across campus in the rain and the sleet. You know, we moved this event to April from February because we've had snow and bad weather before, thinking we'd have beautiful weather in April, but maybe this event jinxed the weather. I don't know. I'm Brent Patterson. I'm the Interim Vice President for Student Affairs, and today's a very special day for the University and the Division of Student Affairs because we get to induct some outstanding individuals into the Steve and Sandi Adams Legacy Hall of Fame. This is one of my favorite days of the year, and I look forward to it throughout the year because there's such special people who have been part of the university and have given back in so many ways. And we'll introduce them later and give you a little bit more about that. But before we begin the program, it's my pleasure to introduce the 19th president of Illinois State University, Dr. Larry Dietz.
Thank you very much, Brent. A real pleasure to be here. I feel like that I've come home a little bit, see all the familiar faces in the crowd, and it's always a pleasure to greet friends and treasured colleagues. Want to say thanks again for joining us today. I was one of those that was walking across campus in the sleet to get here, but that's blown out of here, and I think it's going to be a beautiful day for the rest of the day, hopefully. It's also always a great pleasure to see Steve and Sandi Adams here and to see them come to the campus, particularly when they venture on this side of the campus. Usually when we see them, it's Marlene and I greeting them, and it's west of Main Street, somewhere over at the ISU basketball game. Steve, of course, is the voice of the Redbirds. He had a little bit of a retirement in the time that he was the original voice of the Redbirds, and we're absolutely delighted that you're back and in that role again. And yes, I think that's, yeah, there you go. Sandi spends time in the stands and gets to see the back of her husband's head quite a bit. And she also has a job, though, in that she sits very close to President Emeritus Al Bowman and former First Lady Linda Bowman. And her job there is to simply keep Al from running down on the court and grabbing a referee by the throat on a regular basis, and so that's a big job as well. They really, though, Steve and Sandi have been absolute treasures for this university. Sandi graduated from Illinois State before enjoying a career in Bloomington Public Schools and also at ISU. And Steve graduated from another institution just a tad south of here, but he has also been granted a Redbird degree, and we're delighted about that, his being a Redbird as well. We all, on occasion, go on a different road. That now he's back, and we're delighted that you're here with us. Steve did attend the lab schools, both Metcalf and University High School, and has had a long career here. Steve's ISU career spanned 3.5 decades in admissions, enrollment management, and finally as the Vice President for Student Affairs. When I came to Illinois State in 2011, I followed Steve as the Vice President for Student Affairs, and I learned very quickly that I had big shoes to fill in replacing Steve Adams, and no one really replaced him. I just took the job, and he went into retirement. But Steve really, at that point, handed me a fantastic division filled with great, talented, and wonderful colleagues. The transition was smooth, and to this day, I want to thank Steve for his leadership, his mentorship, for his friendship, and for helping me to quickly become part of the Redbird family. Also, Steve and Sandi and Marlene and I have become close friends, and we always enjoy seeing the two of them at lots of different venues, more sporting events and so forth, but it's always nice to walk into rooms where you have friends and smiling faces. I wish we could transport some of that to Springfield right now. but nevertheless, I always enjoy that, and Marlene and I treasure our friendship with both of you. They're indeed symbols of the mission of the Division of Student Affairs and exemplars of the values that Illinois State holds dear. Their Legacy Hall of Fame awards honor those who've served as student leaders or employees, then extended their commitment long past that graduation day. The people that we honor today, Heidi Voorhees, James Ford, Andrew Purnell, and Steve Smith, all know that education occurs well beyond the classroom, that mentoring and nurturing students produces not only high-quality graduates, but also prepares young men and women as actively engaged citizens who are ready to meet the opportunities and challenges of today as well as tomorrow. So most people will tell you that the mission of a university is to teach students, conduct research, and contribute through service to a global community. I would really prefer to go a bit beyond that and to say that the real mission of a university is to change lives, one student at a time. The student, staff, and alumni of the Division of Student Affairs change lives. You do it one student at a time. You do it through the groups and the organizations that they belong to. And there's no greater evidence of that change in lives than the people gathered in this room today. So to Steve and Sandi, I say, you have my enduring admiration and respect. We appreciate your generosity and commitment for setting this program up. And to our honorees, I say congratulations to each of you. And to all of you, I want to say thanks for being here. And we appreciate your attendance, appreciate your honoring the honorees by your attendance, and Steve and Sandi who set this wonderful opportunity up. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, President Dietz. Induction into the Steve and Sandi Adams Legacy Hall of Fame is really an honor bestowed upon alumni who served both as student leaders and perhaps as student employees, and both of those things. But also, they were part of the Division of Student Affairs. The recipients are recognized not only for their contributions while on campus, but also their post-graduation commitment to contributing new knowledge through research, scholarship, and creative pursuits, to providing enduring dedication to individualized attention, to promoting teamwork and respect for differences and goals that celebrate diversity, and for enhancing the quality of life of their communities through collaborative and individual action. Now, the representative of these values are Vice President Emeritus Steve Adams and former First Lady of the Division of Student Affairs, Sandi Adams, for whom the Hall of Fame is named and is supported through their generous contributions. As President Dietz mentioned, Steve and Sandi have enjoyed legendary careers dedicated to education. Steve here at Illinois State University, and Sandi as a high school and junior high school teacher for more than 33 years serving in the Bloomington schools. They have a combined total of more than 70 years in the field, and in retirement continue to influence the lives of students, of colleagues, family, and friends. So I was trying to do the math earlier, which I think means that, Steve, you're a lot older. They're very impressive individuals, as you know, but together they're a highly respected team that have served students, staff, alumni, and friends of the university at events on campus and all across the country. I feel very fortunate to have worked for Steve and to consider him a valued colleague and friend. And with that, would you join us in sharing your comments?
You know, Sandi really wanted to speak this morning, and that's kind of atypical because she doesn't usually like to do that. And I said, you know, I never have a chance to do this anymore. And so I've spoken a number of times in this room, and by gosh, I'm going to do this morning. And you can just sit there and pin our honorees and whatever else you want to do. It's so good to see you all again, so many familiar faces, fresh faces, I was almost about to say. That too. But members of the faculty, Dean Simpson is here, and retirees, and other members of student affairs and other areas and divisions across campus. Nikki, I do read your newsletter. for for wellness, because as we know, the older we get, and Brent brings that up, of course, we need that. I'm still trying to figure out whether there's any significance to the fact that today is April Fool's Day. I'm not sure which way to turn to find that out, but the date corresponded, I'm sure, with space availability. And this, wow, have you seen the old main room look like this? Michelle, I'm so impressed with what you and your staff did. You told me you actually moved the stage yourself, the second row of, yes. But it's a beautiful room, and it exemplifies the rich tradition of this university. But I'm guessing our inductees, and I've known Steve Smith since he was about this high, and Andrew Purnell has known me since I was about this high. And Heidi, it's so good to see you, and James, thank you all for being here with your families today. But I'm guessing you were probably wondering, they're going to honor me on April Fool's Day? Yeah, right. So there's nothing attached with that, I've been assured, so we can move forward. And I want to say thank you to Brent, first of all, for your generous introduction and for running the show today. You know, you were a critical member, a very critical member of our team when I was the vice president for student affairs, and I'm grateful for all that we were able to accomplish. And a lot of things over that 5-year period were happening on this campus, and played a role, student affairs played a role in the vast majority of them, including Cardinal Court, including the Student Fitness Center, and on and on and on with changes in offices and in personnel. But we had a great staff, Brent, and thank you so much for all you did to make my life so much easier at the time. And Larry, I want to thank you also for your kind words and for your strong support, first as vice president and now as president, and for putting your stamp of approval, and I know you did this, on this program 4 years ago. And there was a lot of discussion as to what it was going to be and how it would be run and how it would pan out, calling it the Legacy Hall of Fame and so on. And I'm just telling you right now that Sandy and I could not be more pleased with what has happened over this period of time and for everything you have done, Larry, in making it a reality for us. As I said, you know, this was merely a dream for us 5 years ago, and that's the truth. It was just a dream, and it became a reality, and now it's just like it's heaven for us. And we see the display outside of this room, and we meet the recipients, the inductees, and it could not have been better. You know, Brent, you stunned me with your reminder that Sandy and I have more than 70 years combined experience in education. You try to make Sandy feel better and me feel worse with your comment. We'll talk about that later. I officially retired as vice president 5 years ago, next month, by the way. But I worked unofficially for those 2 years for Dr. Bowman and Alan and Linda Bowman, and as we traveled across the country. Joy, you were on many of those trips. Doris, you were on a number of them also. Jamie, I know you were with us. We had a great time. Gail was in Fort Myers, I believe. We had a meeting. But we had the opportunity to travel all over the country with the president's team and greet alumni wherever they were. And it said a lot for Illinois State University and what Illinois State University means to so many people all over this country and all over the world. And Sandy, of course, officially ended her career with Bumlincoln Public Schools in 2002, so you'd think, well, she got a break. You know, that was 14 years ago. But she worked 6 or 7 years, as Brent and Larry mentioned, mentoring student teachers and supervising student teachers. And wow, what a good job she did. She's had an impact, folks, on thousands of students. And Diane Devlin, who's a friend of Steve Smith's, was in the room with us before the program began. Diane came in the room and said something to the effect that Sandy taught her how to teach. Sandy hired her at Bloomington High School. And she was a new teacher. She had been in another field, and Sandi actually taught her how to teach. Those were her words, not mine. And that takes a tall order to do that. And besides that, she can really work a room at one of these alumni events. You know, at the end of the day, the feet are swollen a little bit and you're tired and you've been standing on your feet all day long and so on. But by gosh, when it was all over, people were feeling pretty good about being alums of Illinois State. Well, even more staggering than the more than 70 years of education is this. And Larry mentioned that I attended the lab schools, and my early grade school days at Metcalf Elementary School were spent in that building right there on the wall. That's Old Main. That's where some of my classes were held. Not back in 1857, but still enough to have known what that building was all about. You know, last I noticed, Old Main's not here anymore on this campus. It's been torn down, I guess, from what I understand. And it's not true that I was there in 1857 when it was built. So just wanted to make that clear. Sandi came to ISU as a student in the fall of 1962, and I'll tell you why I'm telling you this. She lived in 916 Hamilton. Okay, there's the housing director right there. And in fact, it was very interesting for us to go back up to 916 Hamilton. Stacy and Maureen Blair made that possible for us to do. And the last we saw, that building's being torn down. Now, what's going on here? You know, the building that I grew up in grade school is gone. The building that Sandi came here in 1962 and was brand new is going to be gone by the way of the wrecking ball. We're a little worried about the future of some of the buildings around this campus. The bottom line, folks, for both of us is that we have a really rich investment in this university, a really rich investment. And so it was not difficult for either of us to recognize that we wanted to give back to the university, which had done so much for us, but give back something meaningful to Illinois State University, the institution, and specifically to the Division of Student Affairs. Well, I didn't work my entire career in student affairs, but let me tell you why we chose student affairs to request that this Hall of Fame be established. And that's because it all came together in those last 5 years. It all came together for both of us. It was a dream come true, as I said earlier. We were a team every step of the way for those last 5 years. She was the Division of Student Affairs First Lady. Larry followed with Marlene, who is a wonderful First Lady for our institution. And it's meaningful to us that we were able to do this together. And in decades prior to that, she was with me through admissions, financial aid, enrollment management, of course, athletics. We wanted to recognize, or we wanted something that recognized the true and complete, and Larry stated it so well, the true and complete educational experience of the student. And both of us are big believers in education in the holistic sense, and just not in the classroom, but well beyond the classroom, as Larry stated so eloquently. And so we wanted to be part of creating something that recognized the best of the best at Illinois State University. And right before us are 4 of the best. We wanted to reward those who made a name for themselves with significant contributions while at ISU and continued to make a difference in life after their college years. And so the Hall of Fame was born. And after today's induction of Andrew Purnell, class of 57, Heidi Voorhees, class of 80, and Steve Smith, class of 89, and James Ford, the class of '03. Got that one correct. There will be 11 members in the Legacy Hall of Fame, and that tradition will continue. So you can see why it's been something that is so meaningful and so important to us. You can read their biographies. You can go to that display that sits right out there in the hallway, and you can read about what they've done and their personal stories. Their personal stories are so breathtaking, and their vast range of experiences and accomplishments. There will be no doubt, folks, in your mind as to why these 4 people are here today. And also to the members of the selection committee, and I say this because I want you all to know Sandi and I have nothing to do with the selection of the inductees. This is done by a committee who give their time, their efforts of reviewing the nominations, discussing and evaluating the candidates, and making their recommendations to the Vice President for Student Affairs. And to them, my heart goes out to you, and I'm so grateful for what you did in selecting. That public display, or monument, I like to call it, outside the room exists and impresses because of the efforts of countless individuals from university divisions all across the campus who played key roles in pulling together every aspect of this challenging project. But make no mistake about the fact that the inspiration and the driving force behind the creation and the implementation of the idea for the Legacy Hall of Fame rests with 2 very important people to me and to Sandi, both professionally and personally, and those are Katie Killian and Danielle Meller-Schuster. Would you 2 please stand and everybody recognize their efforts? And once again, congratulations to our 2016 inductees. Believe me, your legacy at Illinois State and beyond lives on. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. We received several outstanding nominations for the Hall of Fame. And then it became the work of the committee, as Steve said, to choose 4 individuals who truly reflect the values of Illinois State University, the values of the Division of Student Affairs, and have contributed to making a difference in the lives of others through service to the university, their professions, and in their communities. And so now, please join me in congratulating our 4 inductees to the 2016 Hall of Fame: James Ford, if you'll stand, Andrew Purnell, Steve Smith, and Hadi Voorhees. Now, you know this is a student affairs event, which means that we're going to engage the students in the part of the event. And we couldn't think of a better way to do that than have some of our students introduce to you the award winners and the inductees to the Hall of Fame. So let me start with Nicole Bianchi. Nicole's a junior from Lake Zurich, Illinois, is studying elementary education. As a Redbird, Nicole has been very involved in the honors program, is a Mary F. English scholar, a Welcome Week intern, a Thomas Metcalf Elementary School Music Academy tutor, and she serves as a member of the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development. That's a mouthful. And is the current president of the University Program Board. Nicole's future plans include returning to the northwest suburbs this fall, where she'll be doing a year-long student teaching internship, a PDS program. And so with that, Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Patterson. I have the pleasure of introducing our first inductee, James E. Ford. James Ford currently serves as the program director at the Public School Forum of North Carolina. Prior to this, he served as the 2014-2015 North Carolina Teacher of the Year. Mr. Ford previously taught world history at Garinger High School in Charlotte, North Carolina, starting in 2010. Mr. Ford earned a Bachelor of Science in Mass Communication from Illinois State University in 2003, as well as a master's degree in teaching from Rockford University in 2009. Before deciding to become a teacher, Mr. Ford's early career cemented his connection to children and youth. He worked as a truancy intervention specialist in high schools, as well as a director of a teen center that provided educational and after-school activities for youth at risk of dropping out of school. Mr. Ford has been recognized as Charlotte Magazine's Charlatan of the Year, as well as the National Alliance of Black School Educators Teacher of the Year. Mr. Ford is currently an ordained reverend in the African Methodist Episcopal Church and has been in ministry for 15 years. He currently serves as the associate pastor at Sanctuary Charlotte Church in Charlotte, North Carolina, along with lead pastor Dr. Percy Reeves. Please join me in congratulating Mr. James Ford. Congratulations, Mr. Ford.
So much. Oh, wow. Boy, this is a blessing. What a blessing. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you, God. It's very cliche to do that, right? To thank God, but I mean that. I remember praying to God several times before finals. Hoping just to get across the stage, get out of the university successfully. And so to be here now, receiving this award, Steve and Sandi, thank you so much. To President Dietz, to Dr. Patterson, and to Nicole, who I'm so excited about. She's going to be teaching. My eyes just lit up because I love me some teachers. I just think that we're some of the most underrated individuals in the entire world, doing some of the most all-important work. There's a very sweet sensation that comes with this award. I was beginning to feel kind of a nostalgic rush of emotions just driving in, just driving in town and seeing the university, recalling all the memories, and just the maturation process that happened for me. I joke and sang, but I mean it wholeheartedly. I came to Illinois State University a boy and most definitely left a man. There's so many great experiences that came about from my time here. I recall, the numerous courses and the teachers that I took, the level of scholarship that I gained from being here, the level of mentorship that I gained from so many elders on campus, many of whom are still here, who mentored me in my involvement in different various student organizations. Those skills that you earn or that you accrue from participating in, student affairs and serving on BSU or being a programming chair, those abilities to connect and be able to collaborate with different audiences, you find that when you leave that those things actually translate very well to the real world, right? And so this was kind of an incubation hub for leaders. And for me to now be here in the presence of you all, in the presence of so many people who I just have so much respect for, I'm just beside myself with joy and with gratitude. I was a struggling student when I came to ISU, and I was wrapped around with the loving arms of the TRIO program, who mentored me, who sought after me, who kept me in line. It took a long time to get out of the shadow of my older sister, who at the time was a student body president. So for me to be known as anything other than Venata's brother is an accomplishment. And then, of course, having my younger sister come here as well. This is our entire family, my siblings. We all graduated from Illinois State University. So this is very sacred, hallowed ground to myself and my family. I want to thank my parents who are in attendance for creating me and giving birth and raising me and being very patient with me. Plenty of times you called on the weekends and I didn't answer. I was still alive, and you guys still believed in me. I appreciate and love you for your support. And to my wife, who I wouldn't be here without my wife. We share the bond of having met here. This is my college sweetheart. And so, Illinois State for both of us is a very special place. And to my children, who this is their first time getting the chance to come here, who see all the sweaters and the logos and wondering, where's Illinois State? And they're finally here to be able to make that pilgrimage. I'm just so honored to be able to have them here. And so please do know, as we continue to contribute to this legacy, that I consider myself honored. It is a high honor and a pleasure and a privilege to be amongst all the honorees and to be a Redbird. Very proud day to be a Redbird, and thank you so much for this acknowledgement.
Sorry, folks, got to get the pictures in. Thanks, Lindsay. At this time, I'm going to introduce Brandon Soto, who will then introduce Andrew Purnell. Brandon's a sophomore from Naperville and is majoring in information systems. As an ISU student, Brandon has been very involved in the ISU student chapter of the NAACP as its vice president, has served as a Welcome Week intern, and Brandon's future plans include enlisting in the Air Force and gaining a few years' experience, and then pursuing a dream job of being a federal agent. So we hope all that comes to fruition, and then we can see you back here, right? Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce you to our next inductee, Andrew Purnell. Andrew Purnell attended Illinois State Normal University during the mid-50s. In addition to taking many classes on campus, he participated in various social activities such as movies in Capen Auditorium or off campus, intramural sports, conference games, Big Four dances, formals in all dormitories, tennis, and a variety of club activities which included religious and non-religious activities. Purnell's induction into Iota Lambda Sigma, an honorary industrial arts fraternity, serving on the junior and senior class advisory boards, and a class presentation on flux density are some of his special moments at ISNU. However, there were also challenging times, especially when he and others experienced discrimination within our community. As a result, Purnell was integral to the organization of a student chapter of the NAACP and implemented a plan within the community to learn more about where discrimination was experienced. Purnell and others shared the findings of this research with the local state's attorney, resulting in a promise to inform all public establishments in the Bloomington Normal area to end discrimination. This practice did not end overnight, but it did end. After graduating from ISNU in 1957, Purnell was drafted into the United States Army, completed basic training in Colorado, and was assigned to Aberdeen Proving Grounds to a company of special troops. With a major in mathematics, Purnell was assigned to do classified work in mathematics and statistics for the United States government. Upon his release from active duty, he continued his study and taught high school mathematics. In 1970, he earned a master's degree in administration and supervision. 1 week after graduation, he entered for a job in administration and was hired. Another part of Purnell's life is being active in a Christian Science church. He has served on various committees, taught Sunday school, ushered, served as first reader, and on the church board as chairman and treasurer. He has also assisted as a chaplain at penal institutions and mental health hospitals, and specifically served as chaplain at Manteno Mental Health Hospital. In 1983, along with other ISU alumni, Purnell was involved in the creation of an affinity group within the ISU Alumni Association, the Illinois State University Black Colleagues Association. Its purpose is to assist African American students financially to increase the retention rate and number of graduates. As of today, the association has given more than 100 scholarships, increased its membership, and continued to solicit donations for additional scholarships. Members of the Black Colleagues Association, including Purnell, have been active members of the Alumni Association Board and various committees, including the executive committees, chapter and clubs, awards, and others. Thank you, Andrew, for your advocacy and congratulations.
Thank you, Brandon. Boy, this is really a nice occasion. I want to thank everyone involved in putting together this program. I was really surprised to be named as one of the honorees. I have a lot of people to thank, President Dietz, all of the administrators here at Illinois State University, and past faculty members. I am truly grateful for this honor. I'd like to also thank my parents for giving me the guidance and counseling necessary to complete my college education. There are many others who were involved in helping me along the way. There were two statements I learned early in life that I've always counted on to help me with guidance and inspiration. And they are, to those leaning on a sustaining infinite, today is big with blessings. And that is very true. And the second one, some of you might be familiar with, is trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not on thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Brandon mentioned quite a few activities that I was involved in while a student here at Illinois State University. But at that time it was called Illinois State Normal University. Later the name was changed by dropping the name Normal. As a student, I was involved in the NAACP. I was vice president my last year, and it became necessary for us to come together as a group of students to see what we could do to change the atmosphere for our fellow students off campus. Some of those students you might know of today. One was former ambassador to the United Nations, Donald McHenry. He was a classmate of mine. My roommate, Roy Foley, who was a chem major, and many others. The problem that existed in Bloomington was that we didn't know where we could go and where we couldn't go. Sometimes we could attend or go into a restaurant and enjoy a nice evening. Other times we couldn't. I was involved in a bowling league here on campus, bowled every week, enjoyed the participation. I was the only African American student in the whole league. One weekend, my roommate and I decided to attend the bowling alley and get some extra practice in. We were denied an alley in the bowling alley. The young man who was acting as the person who would give out the alleys was a friend of mine. He was a fellow student, fellow classmate. And he told me that the management wouldn't allow him to give lanes to people of my ethnic background. And I asked him why. I said, because I bowl here every week. He said, but that's different. They were afraid that it might drive away other business. There were other situations that occurred, not all the time, but sometimes. Not being served in certain restaurants, housing not open to all students. And after some of these situations that we talked about, we decided to get together, and a group of students formed a student chapter of the NAACP. And I see Brandon is a vice president of today's chapter. We tested all of the facilities in Bloomington and Normal, and we documented the type of treatment that we were given or not given. And we did this for quite a few months. And we decided to take this information to the state's attorney's office in Bloomington. And we indicated what was going on in the town. And he said he would do something to help us, because we knew that discrimination in the state of Illinois was not permitted. He contacted every public establishment, and we eventually got this change. Don't know exactly when it changed, and didn't change immediately, but it did change. I was also on the advisory board, and a lot of times students feel as though they're not able to express their views and be heard by the administration. Well, I had the opportunity to be on this advisory board in my junior and senior year, and we found out how things worked. We participated. We were very involved in all of the activities on campus. Some of the other things were also mentioned by Brandon. One was military service. I was drafted in my senior year in the fall, and was very disappointed at first because I felt as though I might not be able to finish and graduate. I went to the dean of students, and he wrote a letter to the draft board and got my induction canceled. So I was able to finish out the year, graduate, and then I was waiting to hear this call from Uncle Sam saying, I want you. The rest of June went by, didn't hear anything. July went by, didn't hear anything. In the meantime, I took a class that lasted for 2 weeks. I even got a part-time job, just waiting to hear what was going to take place. So one day I couldn't wait any longer, so I went down to the draft board and inquired to see if I was actually being inducted. And the lady that I talked to said, you haven't received your notice? I said, no, I haven't received it. She said, it's in the mail. I went home immediately, and it was in the mail. So I was drafted in September with a group of other students from the Chicago area, and we were put on a train and sent to a location for basic training. We couldn't tell where we were going because we couldn't decipher the orders. And after about halfway to Colorado, we were able to figure out what these orders were saying. Found out that we were going to Fort Carson in Colorado. The training was strenuous, but nothing that we couldn't get through. But I was still concerned about where would I be sent? Where was I going after basic training? And I guess I talked to my sergeant about once a week about where I was going, and I had listed all these places where I didn't want to go. And finally one day he said, "Don't worry about where you're going. You're going to have a good job." And I said, "What kind of a job is a good job in the Army?" Well, I found out that I was going to be sent to Aberdeen Proving Grounds. And I was put in a company of special troops. We were all college graduates, engineering students, and mathematics students. So I spent my time serving our country in a laboratory doing classified work for the government in the field of mathematics and statistics. So I was grateful for this experience because it gave us a real insight on what we were studying in the classroom. We had solved many problems, used many formulas, but we didn't see it put into practice. There, we did some very interesting work. Cannot talk about it, but it was very interesting. Eventually, we found out that we could leave the service early if we went back to school. So I immediately signed up for one of the local universities and took 2 classes. In the summertime, 6 hours was considered a full load, so I took a math class and a statistics class. Finished those, and one day one of my friends said, "I need a ride to an interview, but I don't have any way of getting there. Can you give me a ride?" So I said, "Sure." I was out of school, out of the Army, out of summer school, and I went and took this young lady for her interview. And while I was waiting, receptionist said, "Are you here for an appointment?" I said, "No, I'm just a chauffeur." And she said, "Are you a teacher?" I said, "Well, I'm certified. I haven't taught." She said, "What's your major?" I told her my major, and she said, "Oh, we have an opening for you." Said, "Would you like an interview?" So I said, "Sure, it wouldn't hurt." At that time, I wasn't quite sure exactly what I wanted to do. Went for the interview the next day and got hired. And that's how my teaching got started. After teaching a few years, I decided that maybe I should get another degree. But by that time, I had gotten married, had 3 little children, was buying a house, and I said, I don't see how I can do all of this. But I followed the still small voice, which told me to go and have a conversation with some of the advisors in the local universities. I found out that I could go to school. I was eligible for the GI Bill, enrolled in school, took courses, 2 courses that summer, and I said, well, what am I going to do in the fall when I go back to work? I said, maybe I can try 1 course. Maybe I can work and get through that. While registering for the 2nd semester, I met another fellow student, a lady who had 3 little children, and she was working full-time, and she was taking 3 courses at night. I said, wow, if she's taking 3 courses, maybe I can try and take 2 instead of just 1. So I did that. Finished in 2 years, completed the course for a degree, master's degree in administration and supervision. I notified my boss at work that I was graduating on the weekend. He called me the very next week and said, "There's an opening. Would you like to have an interview for this opening in administration?" I said, "Sure." I went, and guess what? I got hired. So I started my work in administration. I've had many pleasant experiences teaching and doing the various jobs that an administrator would do. I've also had various opportunities to work at church, as you heard Brandon indicate, the many positions that I held. I also had an opportunity to serve in 2 penal institutions, Joliet Prison and Statesville Penitentiary. Also served at 2 mental hospitals. At this time, I was assisting the chaplain. I have to tell you that the first time I walked through a prison yard, all I could remember was seeing movies where various individuals were in the prison yard doing exercises, playing athletic sports, and so on. And I was really uneasy walking across this prison yard because it was filled with prisoners. And I looked at the young man who was leading us through, and he was not armed. All he had was a little nightstick. So I said, well, if he can walk through the yard with just a nightstick, I guess the rest of us can walk through also. Went through, nothing happened. The prisoners didn't even hardly look at us. They continued what they were doing. Continued helping the chaplain with the work that he had to do. And later on, I became a chaplain myself at Mantino Mental Hospital and also Kankakee. I enjoyed this work because I felt as though I was doing something useful that could help other people. So along with this, a group of alumni from Illinois State University decided to get together one weekend. And we had such a time reminiscing, talking about our days on campus, seeing old friends that we hadn't seen in a good while. And someone came up with the idea that maybe we should join the Alumni Association and become a part of it. We did. And to make a long story short, we became an affinity group of the Alumni Association. Later on, I became an alumni board member, served on the executive committee, served on other committees, chapters and clubs, and did that for 13 years. So many good things have happened on my path in life. I am certainly grateful for everything good that has come to me. I am grateful for the inspiration given me by the faculty here at Illinois State University, and to always continue to do the best you could. And I'm happy to say it has paid off. So I am truly grateful. Thank you, past faculty members. I don't see any of them here now, but the evidence is here. So I had a good time, enjoyed campus life. Thank you, President Dietz, and all the other administrators.
Our next student host is Connor Bowman. Now, if you've been on campus, you know Connor because you often see him walking backwards on campus giving tours. So we're going to let you walk straight forward today. Yeah, okay. Connor's a senior from Salem, Illinois, and a music education major. He served as the student coordinator for the Preview program and admissions ambassador, president of the Illinois State Chapter of the National Association of Music Education, and drum major for the Big Red Marching Machine. Connor's future plans include either teaching music or attending graduate school in musicology. Connor?
Thank you, Dr. Patterson. I have the honor of, I'm 5'4". I have the honor of introducing the third inductee. Steve Smith has been an active member of the Illinois State community for 30 years. He first arrived on campus as an undergraduate student with no declared major and had a desire to get involved in student life. After taking a career choice class, he decided to pursue a major in public relations and a minor in sociology. He later ended up working as a peer advisor and instructor for the Career Center, helping other students discover their strengths and explore potential occupations. Steve joined Alpha Tau Omega fraternity during his freshman year, which afforded him numerous leadership positions, including serving as various officer positions and president of the campus interfraternal council. He also worked as a student Greek relations specialist and was one of the 100 college students selected nationally to attend the first ever leadership program in 1986. Steve was selected as a preview guide and later went on to serve as the assistant coordinator for the program while working in the admissions office. He also worked as a graduate student in the former College of Continuing Education and earned a master's degree in communications with a concentration in healthcare and aging before relocating to the Chicago area. Steve's career has focused on improving the lives of older adults and supporting family caregivers. He held various positions at the Alzheimer's Association and the American Academy of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation. Today, he serves as the CEO of the American Academy of Hospice and Palliative Medicine, a professional medical society that supports nearly 5,000 physicians who care for those with serious illnesses through education, advocacy, research, and leadership development resources. He is employed by the Association Management Center in Chicago, where he is also a member of the senior management team. Steve is also a committed volunteer who served on several professional boards and committees within the American Association of Medical Society Executives, Association Forum of Chicagoland, American Society of Association Executives, and Council of Medical Specialty Societies. He was the recipient of the Association Forum's Distinguished Service Award in 2014 and its Inspiring Leader Award in 2009. Steve was also recognized as a top associate CEO by CEO Update magazine in 2012. Steve also volunteers at the local hospice and serves on the Amida Health Alexian Brother Hospice Advisory Board. At Illinois State, he is a member of the Alumni Board of Directors and School of Communication Alumni Advisory Board. He chairs ISU's Half Century Committee and helped organize and promote reunion events for Preview ISU and Alpha Tau Omega fraternity. In 2015, Steve received ATO's Eric and Karen Burwell Outstanding Community Service Award in recognition for his continued service to his community, fraternity, and university. Steve and his wife Karen, also an Illinois State alum, reside in Elk Grove Village and are proud parents of 3 boys, Blake, Logan, and Zach, who is currently a junior at ISU. Thank you for your continued involvement in Illinois State, and please join me in congratulating Steve Smith.
that was a lot, so I'm going to try not to say so much. However, I'm the guy with the glasses, for those of you, I'm at that age now, and the written remarks, so try to keep me on point here. So I want to thank Connor for that great introduction. It's truly an honor to receive this recognition, especially because it comes in the name of two people who supported me early in my career, Steve and Sandi Adams. I want to thank them for their encouragement and their friendship. In fact, as was mentioned, Steve and Doris Groves, who's here somewhere, actually gave me my first professional job in the ISU admissions office. And speaking of admissions, I'm not exactly sure how I got accepted at ISU, but I am thankful that I was. When I arrived on campus in 1985, I was not much of a leader or particularly a good student, but I was looking forward to a fresh start, and I hoped to make the most of my college experience. ISU made me feel welcome right away, and I knew this was going to be the good place for me. During preview, I was relieved to learn that college wasn't just about academics. In fact, in addition to the usual courses, there were also places that I could go to help figure out my major and things I could choose to get involved with and people who would help me if I needed assistance. I still recall Dean Virginia Owen telling us at preview, quote, "There's a place for all of you in the graduation line here at Illinois State University." That was reassuring, especially to my parents. What nobody explained, nor really could they, was how much ISU would really change my life forever. Not only did I discover what type of work I am best suited to do, but I picked up some important life lessons during my time on campus. First, as a member of my fraternity, I learned about leadership, governance, and philanthropy. Through the Interfraternity Council, I discovered the importance of collaboration, accountability, and diplomacy. I also had that unique opportunity to work with Mike Shermer, who's also somewhere here in the room, as a student Greek relations specialist. He believed that students could influence and coach other students more effectively than the university administrators could. And I think he was right, actually, at that time, for sure. I use a similar approach of empowerment with volunteer leaders within the professional association where I am currently the CEO. While at ISU, I also learned the value of volunteering. We didn't have leadership and service lifestyle options or formal coursework back then, but we had role models in student affairs who encouraged us to give back to our campus and our community. When I was approaching the end of my senior year, I wasn't sure whether to pursue a career working in higher education administration or healthcare administration. At that time, Jane Capagna Reggio was here, and she was another early mentor to me, and she offered the following advice. "You can do both," she said. "Choose one as a career and choose the other as a volunteer activity." That's exactly what I did, and I've shared that same advice with so many others through the years. And finally, I learned about professionalism from somebody else who's here today, Doris Groves. In a few weeks, as was mentioned, Preview will be celebrating its 50th anniversary. I know some of you will be a part of that. Everyone who's worked with that program knows how unique and special it really is. Once again, it is ISU students on the front line answering difficult questions and helping families through an exciting yet nerve-wracking transition. Watching Doris oversee this summer-long event with so many moving parts, people, and program elements while I was a student was awe-inspiring. And she always did it with such a calm demeanor and a smile on her face. I think about that every time our team heads off to our annual conference that we organize. It's only a week long, so it doesn't require the same level of stamina as Preview does. And there are no nervous parents hovering nearby, for which I am thankful. Despite those differences, Preview helped me understand and appreciate the relationship between public relations, program development, event planning, and helping people successfully transition from one stage of life to another. I have been able to draw upon these important lessons in my work with healthcare professionals and those who provide medical care and support to families. This has included individuals with Alzheimer's disease, physical disabilities, and people who are in hospitals, nursing homes, and hospices. I think those of us who work closely with hospice patients spend more time thinking about what matters most in their lives. For me, it's spending time with family and friends, working with people who are passionate about what they do, educating others in my community about care options at the end of life, and spreading the word about this amazing university. In closing, I want to say a special thank you to the individuals who helped me discover these passions during my years at ISU. Steve and Sandi Adams, Doris Groves, Mike Shermer, and Jane Capagna-Reggio. You were and still are amazing mentors. Thank you for seeing something to me before I saw it myself. Sorry. Also want to, of course, this has got to come next, right? I also want to thank my family, my wife Karen, my boys, two of them who are here with us today, for their understanding and support through the years. And before you guys start to pull me off the stage here with some music or something, I do want to say just how inspiring this whole day has been. To hear everybody's stories is amazing. And I, of course, want to thank all the folks who work in student affairs, who have dedicated their professional lives to the well-being of these students at ISU. Thank you.
And last but not least, our student host, Patrick Kelly, who will introduce Hadi Voorhees. Excuse me. Patrick is a junior special education major from Cary, Illinois. He's been very involved in student government and currently serves as a student body vice president. He's a member of the honors program and the Best Buddies. Now, Patrick is also a person who's very humble, so he hasn't said in his remarks here about how the work that he's done this year. One of his big projects this year was putting together what's called Redbird Plaza. And so some of you will remember another one of those buildings that's been torn down was the Rambo House behind Fell Hall. And so Patrick has worked this year on what would go in that spot. The Rambo House came down, and it's a plaza that will have a Redbird statue on it. And so thank you for doing that for the students of the future. So,
all right, thank you very much, Dr. Patterson. And I'm honored to introduce our final inductee, Hadi Voorhees. Voorhees graduated from Illinois State University in 1980 with a degree in political science and a minor in English. While at Illinois State, she served as the assistant news editor for the Daily Vedette, the student member of the Board of Regents, and the Student Association president. She then attended Indiana University, where she was a fellow in the Eli Lilly State and Local Government Fellowship Program and obtained a master's degree in public administration. Following graduate school, she was accepted into the Kansas City Public Management Internship Program. At the conclusion of her internship, she was hired on as a budget analyst for the city. She returned to the Chicago area to work for the village of Schaumburg, where she served as the assistant to the village manager. Then, in 1986, she accepted a position as the assistant village manager for the village of Wilmette, Illinois. After 4 years in that role, she was promoted to village manager as a position that she held for more than 10 years. During her tenure, Voorhees focused on delivering high-quality municipal services, streamlining administrative and management functions, and team building throughout the organization that employed 200 individuals. Under her leadership, the organization developed a collaborative budget process, formalized its long-range capital improvement program, and developed a budget and financial policies that led to the achievement of a AAA bond rating for the community. Voorhees is currently the president and co-owner of GovRH USA, a national firm that focuses on recruitment and selection, management consulting, and compensation analysis for the local governments throughout the country. She has conducted more than 200 recruitment and selection processes for the city and county managers, police chiefs, fire chiefs, public works directors, finance directors, and similar local government positions. GovHR USA has served clients ranging in the size from Austin, Texas to Lake Lure, North Carolina. Ms. Voorhees and her business partner, Jolene Earle, also founded GovTemps USA, a temporary staffing agency focusing on local government. She has been an adjunct instructor at Northwestern University's master's degree program in public policy and administration, and at Northwestern Center for Public Safety. She's a frequent speaker on recruitment and selection issues and has conducted training programs throughout the country, including Northern Illinois University's Civic Leader Program and the Great Lakes Leadership Academy. She has been an active Rotarian for 26 years and has served on the board of several not-for-profit organizations. She's a founding member of the Legacy Project, an organization dedicated to the advancement of women in local government. Voorhees has been married to Edward Walczak for 28 years, and they have 2 children, Annie, who is a teacher, and David, who is a law school student. Congratulations, Heidi, and thank you for all that you have done.
Well, I was so happy to see Steve take out notes. Those first 2 gentlemen were intimidating, doing all that off the cuff. I thought, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do that. But I do want to thank you all so very much for this award. President Dietz, Vice President Emeritus Adams, Steve and Sandi, thank you so much, and Vice President Patterson. I am truly honored to be recognized here at ISU, where I learned so much about leadership and friendship, and also had a wonderful academic experience. As young people, we heard and now tell our children that college is a time for experimentation, and as parents, we mean the academic kind. And that it's a time for finding what inspires us, and ISU certainly provided that laboratory for me. Often it was, however, at the expense of the Student Affairs Division. When I received the notification that I was to be inducted into the Steve and Sandi Adams Legacy Hall of Fame, I was sure they had the wrong person. And it did cross my mind that it was an April Fool's joke played on me by some of my friends from back then. Because you see, I was a bit of a rabble-rouser as the Student Association president. Those of us involved with the Student Association back in 1979 and 1980 gave Jude Boyer, Martin Jackson, and Mike Shermer a fair amount of heartburn. And as I look back on it, they were unbelievably patient with us. Furthermore, they were kind without being condescending, and they were instructive without preaching. But most of all, I remember their sense of humor, which I think they really needed it in order to work with us. While involved with the Student Association, I learned about collaborative decision-making through the shared governance process and committee work. And I also learned about advocacy and compromise, though I admit that on the student side, we were often uncompromising in our approach. But that was also a lesson. As a city manager, I would often encounter people who were uncompromising in their approach with me, and I understood them. I understood their point of view. I imagine that the Student Affairs Division and former Normal Town Manager Dave Anderson would call that karma. I found ISU to be academically rigorous and inspiring. I had professors for all of my classes, and only 1 or 2 were in large lecture halls with teaching assistants. For decades, I have told anyone who would listen that ISU is one of those large universities where you have access to and are taught by talented professors, a place with all of the amenities of a large university and the personal touch of a small college. I've kept in touch with a number of my professors over the years, recently with political science professor Richard Payne, who I took as many classes from as I possibly could. And Professor George Gordon, I used his textbook when I taught at Northwestern in the public administration program. So it's been thrilling to me to stay in touch with those individuals throughout my life. Like some of the other speakers before me, I came to ISU very shy and a very insecure 18-year-old. I was a first-generation college student. My parents were supportive and encouraging, but they could not provide much insight into college or career decisions. Over those 4 years, I found my voice. The university and the Student Affairs Division in particular provided the backdrop for us to participate, to be heard, and to lead. It was an incredible opportunity for a college student. When I was 31 years old, I had to decide if I was going to apply to be the city manager of our community when my boss unexpectedly left for another job. And then, nearly 20 years later, I had to make another very quick decision on whether or not to start my own business when the owner of the firm I was with unexpectedly closed the business. I am certain that without the experiences I had at ISU, I would have had the personal confidence to step up and seize those opportunities. I want to conclude with a word about friendship. Within my first week here on campus in Atkin-Colby, known then as the Virgin Islands, not sure if it still is called that or not, I met 6 women with whom I'm still close friends with 40 years later. When we were at ISU, we shared all of the typical college experiences. We were the freshman class that went to the last rites of spring. And in 1979, we of course held a welcome back Skylab party. People are laughing, no, we're old enough to remember that summer. Since then, we've shared life's ups and downs. This past February, we attended the Carole King show in Chicago, and it was just a wonderful opportunity to reconnect. My closest friend today is someone I met through our shared interest in political science here on campus. Many of my friends and colleagues from those years have gone on to public service and incredible careers, and I want to make a note of some of them. And before I tell you what they've done, I want to reassure the students here, though you all seem to know your path, but none of us knew what we were going to do when we left. So the idea that this was all part of a great plan was not the case for any of us. The person who served as the Student Association Vice President with me was Randy Blankenhorn. He's currently the Secretary for the Illinois Department of Transportation. The Student Assembly Chair was Doug Richardson, who went on to become the Director of the Office of the State of Illinois in Washington, D.C. He worked for Congresswoman Lynn Martin and then served with her when she was the Secretary for Transportation. Linda Kingman was the Normal Town Council liaison. Together we tortured the town council and the town manager. She went on to work for then Senate President Phil Rock and now is the president of a national public relations firm in Chicago. And Dave Fulton, who was vice chair of the Academic Senate, has had a very successful private sector and public sector career. We've all stayed in touch over the years. We've supported one another personally and professionally, and I know they would all say that ISU provided all of us with life-altering experiences and gave us the opportunity to participate in processes that developed our leadership skills. It was an incredible gift, and thank you so much to all of you for continuing on the work that the students did, and I can tell you've taken it to new levels. So we're very grateful. And good luck to all of you, and thank you very much.
So that concludes the formal program, and I think you now know why this is my favorite day of the year. These stories are just incredible. The experiences that you had as students and where you've gone in your careers and in your lives. And truly, as someone who works in student affairs, it means so much to us to hear how we are in some ways able to influence lives in the work that we do day in and day out. Because believe me, some days we question that, whether we're having any impact. I want to thank all of you for coming today and spending time with us and enjoying and with us in celebrating this special day for our inductees. As you leave, you may want to check out the monument that is just outside here in the hallway. So thank you very much and have a great day.